We now turn our attention to Heritage Month in South Africa, when the nation celebrates our cultural diversity. Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Nathi Mthethwa launched the Heritage Month today under the theme, the Year of Charlotte Maxeke, celebrating South Africa's intangible cultural heritage. Minister Mthethwa said national days like Heritage should be used to bring about cohesion and national unity. The minister joins me now to discuss this and more. Minister, good to have you with us tonight here on In Focus. I appreciate your time. You speak of intangible heritage as part of what we commemorate, or at least highlight, during this month celebrations here in the country. What is intangible heritage? Who are the custodians of intangible heritage? And I know we are all custodians of heritage in some form or the other as a nation. However, there are those who are particularly taking interest in these things. Who are they? What role have they played, and how well have they played that role?
Well, it's those keepers of our indigenous knowledge system who have been, been part of the cultural expressions and practices that form a body of knowledge and provide for continuity, dynamism. In other words, it's lifelong knowledge we've acquired, indigenous knowledge that is, and are also sharing that with the younger generations. So you find them in all the corners of our country from different perspectives. Last year, for instance, we had such legends as Dr. Esther Mahlangu, for instance, Oma Katrina Esau. So those are the holders of this intangible heritage in our country.
Yeah, but by all indication, Minister, one would argue that South Africans, especially the younger generation, are in some respect poorly educated, even on the positive aspects of our heritage. To an extent, they do not value it highly or give it even sufficient care and protection.
Well, yes, and we know that we can't blame them or only them because the holders of this indigenous knowledge system themselves have a role to play to engage young people. That is why when we established in 2015 the Living Legends Legacy Fraternity, it was mainly of ensuring that that knowledge is imparted. And that knowledge, by the way, is not a one-way street, because also from the younger generations, there are things which the older generation learn from. We have, for instance, the master classes. We have people produced in different disciplines of arts and culture. For instance, today, one of the things we're, entertained with was understanding the imparting of the knowledge of the likes of Babu Makubane to younger generation. That master plan classes of the legends to the younger generation continues even now.
Yeah. You speak of legends. There are those who have particular interest in some aspects of the heritage, who are saying government, all jurisdictions of government are currently not contributing towards funding their methodological projects or historic research and heritage studies. What are you doing to facilitate that kind of exchange or better support of those particular projects?
Well, I think there would be gaps what government can do. That is why you'll see us emphasizing more partnerships with very many people, including the private sector itself. But to the extent that we focused on this matter some time ago, and we continue to do that, support there's a lot of work and different dimensions of work, which we support as much we can to ensure that there's preservation, there's understanding in society of the kind of things people do, which may not necessarily be there in an obvious way. So it's our duty to do research as well, and be able to receive such research of people who are doing work, so that we expose their work and we garner support for that.
Minister Nathi Mthethwa stays on as we talk further on heritage preservation thereof, support as well as ensuring that it is adequately promoted. Tonight here on In Focus, Newzroom Afrika, Channel 405, conversation on heritage preservation thereof, promotion thereof, and support for organizations that are at the forefront of promoting heritage, with the Minister Nathi Mthethwa with us tonight. Minister, before the break we were talking about the support for the various players, including some voluntary community organizations, right? There are some, for example, who want to preserve historical and cultural heritage sites and places like that. There are families, right? Solomon Mahlangu family, for example, and wanting to preserve that particular part of history. But, you know, how these things are coordinated and handled, sometimes it leaves very little to be desired as far as your consultation with the families, the departments, and consultation with the families and how they work these things out. How are we better handling a situation like that, where we're not embarrassed on the day that you're unveiling a stone of Solomon Mahlangu and the family says we know nothing about this, or in some instances there's a house that is supposed to be preserved somewhere in the Free State in the memory of Mamwini. Up until today, people are saying, well, not much is being done as far as improving that particular part of history.
Well, Thabo, you know, the issue of heritage, it's like museums. They differ in their ownership. Some are owned at the local government level and others are owned privately. And there are those which are owned nationally. I can tell you that when you look at museums, we have about 14 which are the responsibility of the national government and are declared as cultural institutions. So when we are involved, even when we have to intervene sometimes, like in the area of Winnie Mandela in Free State, Winnie Mandela municipality now in Free State, which was formerly Brandford. We do that, we ensure that everybody is taken on board. So that in some instances there has been problems that you're dealing with certain members of family and others come in late and so on. Such things happen, but they are rare and far apart, particularly when we are involved, because we want to take each and every step in a very sensitive way, because these matters mainly are sensitive. And we have you know, successful museums and such which involve families. You can think of Mandela Museum, you can think of Steve Biko in Innsbruck, you can think of Luthuli in KwaZulu-Natal. So we have, and we make sure that all the stakeholders, especially the families, are taken on board.
Okay, so let's talk about that. You said last year that work would have been undertaken in Brandford on the 2nd of May and would have been completed on the 4th of November. And I know it's been a COVID time and there have been some difficulties, but one would say now we are 8 months or 9 months into 2021. Has that work been completed?
Which work is that?
The Winnie Mandela Museum.
Oh, yes. Look, the first thing you needed to do was to preserve the museum itself, to refurbish it and so on, and that happened. And the next was on exhibition. There's a lot of things which are involved there. Remember that you also had that beetle. So there are many people you need to consult and you know, touch base with and ensure that everything is done accordingly. Right now, the process is on for exhibition, including other things, and it will be finalized in a matter of, because the other thing, Thabo, is that with government, you have to follow processes. There are processes, procurement processes, and so on, which you have to follow so that tomorrow there are no comebacks on whatever you have done. I think that in terms of what has been happening, the process has been on, the consultation. You know, when you have to consult, you also have to be patient, because you don't want to steam ahead over and above the fact that you would have, have a targeted time frame. But when things involve people, even some of your time frames have to be, compromised in a way. So that you don't,
but Minister, we know this process of consultation and extended time frames will end up with the department and the nation having egg on their face when we learn, I mean, I'm just using hypothetically here, that 100 million has been spent because of the time that it takes to get these things finalized, when initially you had aimed to spend 6 million rands.
Yeah. No, that happens. The escalation of cost happen. But I can tell you that in all the projects which have been handled by our department, we have not had that. But we have had such problems where our department is the owner of the project, but the project is run by another department, like what is happening at Sarah Bartman, for instance, which is DPWI. And we engage on that because it's not in our interest for the delay of such project, because most of them are very key in the resistance and liberation heritage route, which we are building in the country and connecting with other countries around the region, SADC and the continent. So on this one, we're almost through with it. The bigger part has been done, particularly of preserving the actual structures, which are the two houses.
Now, you speak moments ago, the property ownership structures. You're saying some are owned by the department, some are owned by private entities or commercial owners. We're talking Lilies Leaf now. Of late, we're reporting here on the channel that it will be closing its doors. What are the contradictions there? It's a complex relationship. What are the contradictions? What is leading to this kind of reporting? And then the government coming out and saying, no, it will not close, it will remain open. What's the challenge?
No, it's a matter of accountability, that's all. It's a matter of accountability. The department is still waiting from the Lilies Leaf Trust, the MOA, which the DG of the department signed with the CEO of Lilies Leaf, which is Nick Wolf. To this day, that 8.1 million rands has not been accounted for. There's no fight, there's no contradiction. We just want that accountability and move ahead. And Thabo, this year, through our own initiative, we engaged with Lilies Leaf Trust, specifically Nick Wolf, who's the CEO, and we said 2021 is the centenary of the Communist Party. So we would want, because Communist Party is the co-founder of that very property, would want to celebrate this centenary. And we went ahead and budgeted for that, but we couldn't, give Lilies Leaf Trust funds, because PFMA Section 38 is very clear on accounting. That's all. If they can account, they will be able to be funded and be assisted by government. Because remember, Lilies Leaf Farm is not one of the declared cultural institutions. But those ones which are not declared, we help them as and when we have funds as the department. But Lily's Leaf in particular, over years, my predecessors have asked Lily's Leaf, because of the significance, the historical significance of Lily's Leaf, we've asked Lily's Leaf to be a declared cultural institution, which they refused. We were saying that because we knew that South Africans generally are not museum-going nation, and the issue of sustainability will always be, cropping up from time to time. But they are, and it's their right actually to do that. But they were not going to be in this situation had they agreed. Like all other, as I said, we have 14 museums across the country which get grants, yearly grants from the department because they are declared cultural institutions.
Mr. Before we run out of time, let's deal with the situation of leadership and you flouting PFMA regulations as far as the appointment of the administrator at the National Heritage Council. What is the matter there, and how are you resolving and getting back into a position of legality?
Well, the National Heritage Council had a problem of leadership, a problem of accounting from the executive authority body, which was the council itself. So I had to disband that council. And upon disbanding the council, the CEO resigned. So there was a vacuum. And the constitutional responsibility then lay on the shoulders of the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture. And I intervened. I put in place an administration for a period of time until I appointed the board, which I have. And the process of, finding a CEO, the board started with that. The CEO has been appointed. So the board is moving forward. But there was that inconvenient period where there was nothing. And I could have folded my arms and said, no, nothing. I can't do anything because I must wait for someone. No, the Constitution obliges me to act in such a way, and I acted. Where we are now, we are back on track. The CEO will be starting probably next month or so, but I've been informed by the board that they have appointed the CEO.
Minister Nathi Mthethwa, appreciate your time. Nyambos, thank you very much for coming through. Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Nathi Mthethwa there with us tonight. We'll continue.